real stories and real strategies for people moving freight every day. I am Telly Arnold, and I am the owner of TLA Group LLC, and I am also the creator of Straight Connect, where you connect drivers, carriers, dispatchers, and a verified platform. My co-host is Shanique with Neek Dispatching, and she will introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Shanique. I'm with Neat Dispatching. I'm also a licensed financial professional.
Okay, and then we have Derek with Fast Lane Trucking, who will introduce himself.
What's going on? It's Derek, Fast Lane Trucking, owner, operator, serial entrepreneur.
And then our special guest is Jeremy McClure with the McClure Agency, and he will introduce himself.
Yes, ma'am. Jeremy McClure, otherwise known as Redbeard on TikTok, all things trucking insurance related. Yeah, I did cut out for a second. If that happens again, y'all let me know if I don't respond. But yeah, ready to get started.
All right, Jeremy. So tell us a little bit about your agency and your background in the trucking industry.
Yeah, definitely. So I like to tell people I'm fourth generation in the trucking industry. I did everything I could to stay out of the trucking industry, and then I fell into the trucking industry at one point or another. My dad worked for Schneider, for Covenant, for Swift, for like three other companies. I can't even remember. CRST for a number of years. His dad and his uncles and then his grandfather all worked at different warehouses and local trucking gigs. And then myself, I got into trucking through the insurance realm about 5 years ago. I ended up opening up our agency about 3 years ago. And ever since then, we've done pretty much anything under the sun in trucking.
Uh-oh,
Froze up.
he froze
You
on my
know, really
side.
the goal for us is to help the new ventures truckers just as well as the veteran truckers. So if you're brand new in the industry, if you don't have any experience, we're the go-to person for you. If you've been around for years, we've also got options for you as well. We want to make sure that truckers, when they come to us, that they're handled again from start to finish without any concerns. And whether it's insurance related or just trucking in general, we can help guide you. We have vendors, we have associated partners that can assist you as well.
All right. So the question of the day, leasing on. Let's get straight to it because we talked before and I explained to people when they ready to lease on my authority, you got to come on my policy. So, can you share what is the correct way to lease on to someone's authority? I think I lost Jeremy, so I'm not sure what's going on. Do y'all see that on y'all side too?
Yeah, look like he froze
Yeah,
up
he's
again.
froze.
He's froze. Yeah, so maybe he'll connect from the app because we lost him.
Yep, the dreaded leasing on. Like people have that thing like so confused, or like,
Yes. I
you
just
know,
saw somebody post in a Facebook group that all they had to do was add them on as a, what do you call it when you add somebody on your policy? Not add them on the policy, but like add them on the COI. What do you call
CI.
it?
Uh,
Yeah,
The certificate holder?
additional insured or something like that.
yeah.
But you're not on their policy, and I was like, that's not the right way to do that. Yeah, I'm like, you got to be on based on what Jeremy told me, you have to be on. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got the beginning of that. If it messes up one more time, I'm hopping onto the app. But you wanted to talk about the lease on and basically doing it properly, essentially.
Correct, correct.
Okay, sorry I missed that. Essentially, so a lease on opportunity. I mean, it's huge in trucking right now, especially when it comes to brokers requiring 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and potentially even higher than that or longer than that now. So there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of people wanting to get into trucking.
Yeah, we lost him again.
Yep, froze again.
No. I do have a question though.
Mm-hmm.
Because brokers ask to be a certificate holder with additional
Mm-hmm.
insurance. I wonder what that means for the insurance. Jeremy might be able to answer that one.
I've had that happen to me. Like I was trying to sign up as a carrier with the local company in Houston, and I had to add them as an additional insured. I had to show them like on the COI. And
Correct.
it was like an extra 20 or 30 bucks, but I was like, what does that mean? I don't.
Maybe it's the value of the freight is why.
That's what I was gonna say. I think it's dependent on the value of the actual freight.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
maybe that makes sense. The high
High volume.
yeah.
Right.
Like
High value. Yeah.
electronics. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause I've
We did
had
a load of
loads
battery.
like
The one time I had to do it, we did a load of batteries.
a load of batteries.
I think they were like for the EV cars.
Oh, for the Teslas or something like
Yeah,
that.
right. I don't know if it was Tesla,
Without
but yeah.
without a hazmat?
No, they didn't. They didn't
They
ask
didn't
for a
have.
hazmat.
All right, we back.
We back?
We're done. I'm on the phone. I'm on the app. Can y'all hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Back to what I was saying. Let me get this podcast back on track here. I'm sorry. So yeah, right now everybody's trying to look at what your opportunities are, whether you're starting out on your own as a new carrier with new MC, or whether you're leasing onto a carrier, and to have that opportunity in order to get better loads, potentially lower insurance. Really, those are the two main things. When you lease on, like if you're going to lease on anybody, the two main things you want is a lower insurance cost than what you would be paying if you were doing it on your own, and access to loads or higher paying loads that you wouldn't necessarily have access to if you did it on your own. If one of those two things isn't true, or neither of them are true, there's no point leasing onto that company. So that's like step one. You want to make sure those are true. But then when you are leasing on, there's a number of factors that you have to worry about. On the insurance realm specifically, you want to make sure that you are actually on their auto liability and their cargo insurance, period. There's never an exception. You can't do this whole additional insured certificate holder. You get your own policy, you list them as a certificate holder. None of that works. That is just, I won't say it's fraud, but it's borderline fraud. It's definitely fraud in how a lot of people end up using it. But what it does is it really just puts you in a position where you're going to go out and get these loads. You're going to lease on to a company through your own insurance and not under theirs. And when something bad happens, which we all know it happens, everybody's had a claim once in a while, heard of a claim, etc. The insurance company is going to go based off of the BOL, the bill of lading, and the rate-con. If your name, if your company name is not on the bill of lading, and you try and file that insurance claim and they request proof of the bill of lading, proof of that load, proof of what you were doing, and your company's not on there because, again, you're insured, but you're underneath this other umbrella carrier who's not associated with your policy, your insurance company will not pay the claim. And I've seen it multiple times. And it's one of the biggest issues and biggest scams, in my opinion, that people keep posting about on Facebook. You'll see people say, oh, you can lease onto our MC. We have an aged MC. No offense to foreign dispatchers, but 9 out of 10 of them are the foreign dispatchers where it's like a dispatching service or a company
Mm-hmm.
and they have an MC number that you can lease onto. In those situations, though, again, like if you're not on their auto liability and you're not on their cargo, you have no coverage. And it's really hard to even know if you're going to be on their auto liability and cargo. And I've seen multiple situations where that people were paying $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month, being placed on their insurance, but with no proof of it. And then at the time that a claim happened, the claim wasn't paid out because the driver wasn't on the insurance, the truck wasn't on the insurance, the trailer wasn't, whatever the case is. So when you're leasing on, not only again do you want it to be beneficial to you in general based on those two factors we talked about, but you also want to make sure that you're legitimately on their actual insurance policies. You have a legitimate lease on or lease agreement that details everything that's required by the FMCSA, which we can go into as well. There's a ton of requirements that they have. But it details all of that, and you get proof that you are actually on their insurance policy. If you don't have that, you're up a
You're
creek without a
screwed.
paddle, essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I guess my question is like, I think my process would be what I tell people is I need your information and it requires a deposit. My insurance, you have to put a deposit. I can't get around it. And so once I send the information, I tell them I can't tell you how much your part of the insurance is going to cost because everything is dependent on your driving record and your truck. And so once I get that amount and I tell them this is your deposit, this is how much you have to pay, and then I will get their information and add them to my policy. And then you have to update, is it the UCR to say you have an additional truck, correct?
I don't know about the UCR specifically. You do have to update your MCS 150
MCS
through
150.
MCS 150 through the FMCSA supporting you have additional trucks. Same
Right.
goes for drivers. If you have additional drivers, they have to be listed on there as well.
Right. Yeah. So your MC will show you have more than one driver and more than one truck. Cuz I don't know how people are getting away with it cuz on highway connects your ELD. Your ELD is connected. It shows the VIN number to the truck. it shows all of that. So I don't know. They probably not using highway load board, but highway load board is like connected. And if like our truck set for a week, we had to like make the truck move to like reconnect the highway because it was like kicking Sharif out of it because we were he was home for a week.
Yeah, and for highway specifically, I believe it's 30 days. If you don't move for 30 days, they put you on like a red flag probationary period because they assume that you're doing something sketchy. And so you
Hmm.
can't just move the truck in order to get back into their good standings. You have to move the truck and then wait 30 days. Same as like if you change your phone number on the FMCSA or you change your email address or your address or your name, any of those, they're all red flags for highway and they put you on, it's either a 30 or 60-day probationary period.
Yeah, it was only a week for us because what happened was it kicked us out. Like we had to log back in the app. Like I couldn't even get in the app, and I was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, he was only off for a week. So it was like, oh, once your truck move and we see the truck is moving, and we had already booked a load as well through them.
Yeah, and I mean companies like Amazon, they're big on this as well. They call it double brokering on their side. Double brokering has a very broad term in
Hmm.
trucking right now, but for this specifically, if you are, let's say you're carrier A and you are underneath Amazon and you have a contract with them for a load, and then you hire carrier B, and carrier B actually shows up to pick up that load. If that VIN number doesn't match on the COI, if the license plate doesn't match, if the driver's information doesn't match, you will be blacklisted. Not only will your company be blacklisted, that truck can be blacklisted, and that driver can be blacklisted to where they're not allowed to be used for any other company underneath them because of double brokering. And I've seen it multiple times where Amazon might make some mistakes here and there. There might be an issue or an error, and they email the insurance company, and then we have to provide proof as to which truck's actually on there. And again, if you're doing any shady business, like Amazon doesn't play around. You're blacklisted with
No,
Amazon forever. There's no
yeah,
getting that back.
yeah, because Amazon now, when you book a load, you have to assign the driver, and you have to assign the truck. Back before, you didn't have to do that, but now you have to do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so do you know why? I mean, I'm not sure you would know, but like, why when we renew our policy, it seems to go up, even though we haven't had no incidents.
We were talking about lease agreements. You're not going to pressure me as to why the policies are going up. I'm just kidding. I saw y'all's video. I saw y'all's video. I think you posted it earlier today, but it might have been from a prior.
Yeah,
Um,
Derek.
uh, yeah, Derek was talking about it, and both of y'all were. So I know why. And you're not going to like the answer. It doesn't make it any better or easier to swallow. But
Right.
one thing is when the down payment is needed, right? Let's talk about the down payment, and then we can talk about the increases as well. Is there's feedback on my end? Is there feedback on y'all end?
I
No.
can hear like wind.
That's
Mm.
what I hear too. Is the wind? That's fine though.
Okay.
I
Okay.
just want to make sure it wasn't me. But we'll talk about the down payment first. So down payment's required for any insurance policy in trucking, regardless of the situation. 9 times out of 10, that down payment is going to be your first month and your last month up front. Occasionally, it'll be your first month and your last 2 months up front. But what that looks like is anywhere from a 9% down payment to a 25% down payment. So if you pay, let's say you pay $1,000 a month, a 9% down payment is going to be about $1,000. So down payments, that's easy to do. It's just looks just like your normal monthly payment. If you pay a 16% down payment and you have $1,000 normal monthly bill, then you're looking at like $1,800 to $2,000 down, and then it just kind of increases and goes on depending on your policy. So there's a number of reasons for that. I think a lot of y'all have probably seen the trucking companies, the fly-by-night trucking companies, the scammers, the people who create new companies left and right. They hire drivers, they rack up poor safety scores, and then they throw that company to the side and they open up another one. A lot of the times on the insurance side of things, they're not going to be able to know when a new venture comes in if it is a company like that is a fly by the night company, or it's a legitimate company. This is their first time in this, first time doing it. So they try and save themselves some of that headache by having those down payments, having that increased exposure or that decreased exposure, rather, having the money up front in order to allow for that. So even when you're renewing an insurance policy, you're going to have that down payment. It could be $4,000, it could be $6,000. But the idea behind it is that it is always going to be hopefully your first month and your last month, or first month and the last 2 months. So you're not paying extra necessarily, which some people think you are. You're just paying more of it up front. And it's frustrating and it sucks. And sometimes it's expensive as hell. I've seen down payments for one truck operation be like $8,000, which is crazy. And their monthly ended up being like $1,500, which isn't a bad monthly payment. But if you've got to pay $8,000 down, like that's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
As far as the rates going up, though, I could give the same spiel that most agents do of, inflation and there's more accidents and cars are more expensive, and all that's true. And that does play a factor. But in reality, for trucking specifically, if you want to look at what your golden goose is essentially in reducing that increase or finding a way around that increase, is knowing the appetite of the insurance company that you're dealing with. So there's truckers out there that will, let's just use Progressive, for instance. They'll join Progressive, they'll be insured by Progressive, and Progressive has a certain appetite. Let's say they like general freight, 500 miles general freight. They prefer you to be around whatever city you're starting in. Let's say it's, Dallas, Texas, just for reference. And then all of a sudden you go into reefer, right? And now you're a refrigerated company, and maybe you do auto hauling at some point, whatever. You're starting to bounce out of what they consider their appetite. And so anytime that something like that happens, your rates do increase. Now, if that didn't happen, if you didn't change any of that and you're at your renewal and they're increasing your rates, it could be because their appetite changed and you're not even aware that their appetite changed. And so some people get stuck in this realm where they've got a policy. Let's say it was $15,000 for the first term, and then Progressive comes back and they say they want $25,000. And Progressive or an agent gives them the spiel of, oh, things get more expensive, prices went up, etc. That trucker, carrier, assumes that that's the case across the board. And so they go on Facebook or something and they complain about the rates increasing across the board and insurance is crazy. But what they don't understand is they just don't fit the bill anymore for Progressive or for whatever insurance company that is. And Telly, you had to deal with this, I think, at one point where you had to end up shopping around. And when you shopped around, I don't know how great your policy ended up being, but it was better than what it was before. It was definitely better than what that renewal rate was going to be. And so when these insurance companies change their mind on how they're going to continue and how their appetites are going to be, you have to then, as a business owner, also go around and see what options are out there that fit exactly what your operation is. And for new venture operations, I know people want to be able to do everything. I see that all the time. They want to be able to take cars. They want to be able to do general freight. They want to be able to do pipes and building material and oil field. Anything that comes their way on a load board when they're in a certain area, they want to be able to grab it. When you do things like that, you start to look bad on that insurance company, you start to look bad on future insurance companies, and they're going to hike that rate up, whether it's at renewal or during your quote. And you really have to try and fine tune that as much as you can, even in general freight. If you can make sure that you're not going to do any oversized general freight, it's only going to be just, straight general freight, specifically box truck, light machinery, papers, plastics, etc. That way you really hone in what that insurance company is looking for on their appetite. But there are going to be times as well, and Telly, I think you're probably one of the situations like that where you get to the end, you get to that renewal, nothing's changed on your end. It doesn't look like anything's changed on the insurance company's end, and you just don't know why that rate went up. There are factors in the background. You talked about, flooding and hurricanes on the personal side of things. There are factors like that, the fires in California. I made a video about how, fires in California affect insurance rates in Ohio. These insurance companies are not allowed to directly engage or raise your rate based off of those circumstances. But the way that they sometimes can get around it is, in order for, let's say, an insurance company in California, they have to have reassurance, which is basically their own insurance on their back end, another insurance company that pays them when they pay out a claim so that it saves them from losing some of their profits. That reassurance can get more expensive in areas like California with the fires and Florida with the hurricanes. And as it gets more expensive for them as a whole, they're able to go back to the Department of Insurance and say, hey, we have to increase our rates by 15%, by 20% across the board, not because of the fires, not because of the floods directly, but because our reassurance costs are now higher than they were before. And that's the way they kind of skate past the laws that have been put in place. And some people say it's, shady and shouldn't be allowed. Other people say that's just, when government gets involved, you kind of do what you got to do. And get around those rules and regulations. But it definitely does play a factor. The biggest thing I would say is finding a good agent. And if you have a good agent, you've had them, for more than 1 year, and you know the options and opportunities that they have for you, and they're able to quote you with multiple companies, by all means, let them do that. If it still looks bad after everything they provided you, you can obviously shop around for other agents. But New Ventures specifically, please do not call Progressive, call Geico, and then be done with it. Like, find an actual agent there. One thing I want to make sure people understand as well is there's 40, 50, 60 plus insurance companies out there across the board that'll handle your auto liability, your cargo, your physical damage, all your different coverages, but they will not go to you directly. You cannot call them and get a quote. You have to go through an independent agent. I don't care if it's me, I don't care if it's somebody else, but please talk to an independent agent so you can actually get those quotes. Otherwise, you're going to go around and round with, Progressive, Berkshire Hathaway, Great West Casualty, possibly, and then Geico, which in the box truck realm, Geico, I might be dropping a bomb. I don't know how many people have talked about it, but Geico's pulling back on box trucks. Have y'all heard about that?
No.
No.
Geico is no longer
Just
insuring box
recently
trucks
got
in
into
Texas.
trucks,
They're no
right?
longer insuring box trucks in South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and I want to say 3 other states. And they're increasing those states with every month. So if you have a current Geico policy, you'll be grandfathered in. That won't be a big deal necessarily. But we talked earlier about the appetites. Now that they're no longer doing box trucks, they may renew you. They may provide you a quote, but it also may be
Yeah.
$80,000 per truck. You know what I mean? Like, they're still required by law to allow or provide that renewal, but they are not required to provide it at any certain, reasonable rate. So they're not only doing that for box trucks, for auto haulers as well. If you're a 100% auto hauler, they have stopped that for all states. So Geico no
Mm.
longer insures auto haulers in any state, but box trucks is quickly following suit. I think they're up to, it's either 6 or 8 states that they've stopped, and they just stopped Texas 3 weeks ago, I think, specifically.
Really?
Is it because of the risk?
Yeah. So, and I'll talk on what Derek talked about in that video as well. He kept talking about the Class C vehicles, and I understand that it's a Class C vehicle, so there should be less risk, less concern, less. It's not as heavy as a semi, all of that. But at the same time, it ends up being a higher risk because anybody can drive it. Any
Mm.
person out there can jump in that truck, and the rate or the risk goes more off of the driver itself in that case than the truck. Because of that, there are companies, carriers in very specific areas of the nation, which is why Geico's closing down in those areas first and then expanding to the rest. But there are very, centralized city portions in each state, like Dallas, Houston, Austin, in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, and then a couple other cities I can't remember. That box truck companies are, again, kind of like what I talked about earlier, fly by night. Like, they come in, they come out. They, somebody that has never been in a box truck before, never had any experience before, gets a box truck, goes out there, ends up not securing the load properly, $100,000 down the drain. They get in an accident, $250,000 down the drain if they, kill somebody or if they wreck the
Mhm.
vehicle. And again, there's no preventative measures on who gets in those trucks, really, where a
Mhm.
CDL technically will be that extra step. And it also gets kind of scary when some places make CDLs inexpensive, or you can get that CDL within like 2 weeks rather than a month, or rather than a month and a half, because then you have a lot of drivers that are just pushing through, running through that process. And then, CDL vehicles end up becoming a concern. But primarily for the box truck right now is because, again, anybody and everybody can get in it, and you have to pay essentially your insurance based off of everybody else that's in a box truck. When you're in a personal vehicle, insurance agents will talk about how you're paying for the accidents that other people cause, like
Exactly.
in your zip code and in your state. When you're in a commercial vehicle, you're not just paying based off that zip code in that state. You're paying based off that vehicle. And any other box truck business that's out there that insurance company's dealt with, they're going to rate you based off that entire realm of truckers, essentially. And so the worst people that end up getting into trucking is going to end up biting everybody else in the ass. Even if you've been in trucking for 10 plus years, you're automatically paying a higher rate because of all these brand new truckers that are getting into the field.
Mm.
That makes
Do having
sense.
different, like, I think what hurt us with Progressive is because we was on that appliance contract and we had like a rotating door of drivers. Does that affect a policy? Like, Does that show you as being unstable because you keep changing different drivers all the time?
It definitely can for that insurance company. It won't necessarily be as visible to other insurance companies when you switch to a new one, so they won't
Mhm.
really have that record. If you're switching trucks constantly, that is absolutely noticeable by every insurance company. If you look up your Safer score and look up your past inspections and the vehicles that were associated with that, every
Mhm.
time one of those vehicles is no longer being quoted on your new quote, that insurance company knows about it, and they can see, oh, you had 10 different vehicles last year, but you're only quoting 2 of us now. They're going to
Mhm.
assume, and rightfully so in some cases, but probably not more often than not, they're going to assume that those 10 trucks are still related to you in some manner. And so there's a higher risk that you might try and use those trucks or add those trucks to the policy as soon as it's bound. Maybe you were trying to get a lower down payment because some of the companies don't require a down payment when you add new trucks. And so with those situations, they will rate you as a higher risk for either volatility with truckers constantly flipping over, or the
Mhm.
potential for you adding trucks that you aren't actively telling them about, essentially.
Cause I was like, how do people keep adding all these different lease owns? I'm
I
like, how are
guarantee you
they
they
doing
don't.
it?
I
Oh,
guarantee you they don't.
got you.
There are, on TikTok specifically, there were multiple people that were bragging about every month they needed 3 more drivers or 3 more lease-ons, 3 more trucks,
Yeah.
etc. And the deeper I got into those companies specifically, I won't name them anymore because they threatened to fight me. I'm not trying to not trying to get my face beat in. I will say
Okay.
one of those companies went under though. They went under and their trucks got repoed and they're no longer harming people. Luckily, as far as I can tell.
Got you.
Um, but what they were doing was they were telling people that, you lease on with me, you pay $1,500 down as a doc fee, which I don't know why 1,500 is a doc fee, and then it's refundable within 90 days. And as long as you work for us for 90 days, we'll give you that money back. Well, that money was never seen again. The lease-ons would lease on to them, and they would pay $1,800 a month, $2,000 a month, with no proof they were ever actually on the insurance. They never received a COI. Their VIN numbers were never on there. The drivers were never on there. And then when they went and actually questioned them and wanted that documentation, there are recordings that are on some of my TikToks. If anybody wants to go find them, there are recordings of that owner specifically saying, "You are not on my policy. If you were on my policy, it would be too expensive. That's not how we operate." And again, if you're not on the policy, you've got no coverage. You're driving
Yeah.
illegally at that point, because to the police and the DOT officer, when they pull you over, you show them a little ID card or you show them a COI and it shows your truck on there. They're not really going to pay attention a lot of the times to the truck. They won't pay attention a lot of the times to the specifically to the driver. They don't pay attention a lot to that. Occasionally they'll pay attention to the truck. But they really just want proof that you have a policy, some document in there as far as the
Right.
DOT officer goes. But when you're in an accident and you actually have to prove that insurance and you actually have to pay out or claim has to pay out, when that doesn't happen, that's when you get charged for not driving with insurance. You have to go to court. You possibly have to have an SR22 going forward because you weren't driving with insurance. It's a whole nightmare scenario. But a lot of that stuff doesn't come out until something bad happens. And so these
Exactly.
companies, they lease on, some of them think they're doing it right because they've heard from this person and that person and my friend and my cousin. They've all done it for years. They haven't gotten caught. They haven't gotten in trouble. They haven't had an accident. But you don't want to risk your livelihood or your business on something that somebody else says is okay to do, knowing that, again, there is zero coverage for you. The insurance company won't do anything for you. And if on the smallest grain of possible chance that the insurance company does pay for it, they
Mhm.
will sue you. And you don't want to be sued by Progressive. That is not going to work out well for you as a small business owner.
Right. Right. And so what could happen if, say for instance, you think you're leasing on to someone's authority and you get in an accident and I'm assuming your truck gonna be covered under your own policy if you wreck. But could the company sue you for the cargo, or do you understand what I'm
Absolutely.
trying to say? Like what
A-
could happen?
Absolutely. There's a number of things that could happen there. So if you, let's say you have physical damage yourself on your own truck, most of the time your physical damage is going to pay out for the actual damage to your vehicle, because you got that policy underneath the insurance company, underneath your company name, for 24/7 coverage basically of your truck. So that should be fine. You should be covered
Okay.
there. The issue becomes the liability on the cargo and the liability of who you hit. So if you hit somebody and you cause damage to their vehicle, your
Mhm.
insurance most likely, it is very rare that they will, but most likely will not cover it because again, you are hauling for a company that you were supposed to be on their insurance. You're supposed to be
Right.
associated with them. You have their MC number on the side of your vehicle. Whatever the case is, that is the expectation, is that their insurance covers it. Same goes for the cargo. If that cargo gets damaged, the expectation is the company on the BOL has the policy. And if you're doing your own policy and you're not on theirs, the insurance company won't pay out. And when they don't pay out, the broker or the shipper can sue you. They'll try and go after the original company that they have on the BOL. But I had one the other day. It was a reefer claim. I want to say it was a month ago, and I argued with my client on this because they shouldn't have been doing it. But they accepted a reefer load without their name on the BOL. It's another company's
Mm.
name on the BOL. And then when they got to the receiver, they dropped off the load. They have a signed BOL showing that everything was good. But then 6 hours later, apparently the load was delivered at room temperature. I don't know why they found that out 6 hours later instead of when they were unloading it, but they tried to file a claim on it. And so now insurance is going back and forth and they're trying to fight it because even though our driver's signature is on the BOL and it looks like our driver is the one that dropped it off, that load was not intended for our company at all. And so insurance companies, as much as we love them in a sense, they're going to do everything that they can to not pay out a claim. If it's not based on the contract, if it's not based on the black and white dotted line, what you have in your contract and your documents, they're going to take every escape they can not to pay it. Rightfully so, in a sense, right? Like if you've got a contract with
Right.
somebody, you expect them to uphold that contract. And if you're not upholding that contract, I'm not going to pay you crap based on, whatever you were doing outside of that. So you just don't want to give them any chance or any opportunity not to pay out. So again, you want to be on that auto liability, on that cargo. General liability is great as well if the company has general liability, but typically you don't list an owner or a truck on the general liability. So that's not as much of a concern. The auto liability and cargo specifically, though. And yeah, to your point, like I mean, there's claims that have been happening lately. $1 million of tequila was stolen, $250,000 of eggs, $500,000 in tires, like all
Yeah.
these different things across the news. If you are not listed on the policy as the driver in the truck in those circumstances, that money's on you. Like you're the one that was
Mm.
hauling it, but you were hauling it fraudulently, essentially. Whether you thought that you were correctly on their policy or not, you can still be liable and you can still be brought in. And if you don't have the money for, high lawyer, like, highly used lawyer, like you're going to be screwed. You're just not going to make it out of there effectively. And you're going to pay thousands of dollars in lawyer fees or court fees, even if you do get out of it.
So the best bet for somebody leasing on, for them to know they are on the policy, what should they ask from the person that they're leasing on with so they can confirm it?
In my opinion, it should be the exact same process that brokers take right now. Brokers require the COI be sent directly from the agent to the broker. 99% of brokers require that, right? It comes from the agent, from the insurance company, and it goes directly to them. That way, there's no fraudulent activity. I'm not, the carrier's not changing names and adding information on that document or adding you to it. It's coming directly from the agent. So
Yeah.
you as a driver, you as a leased on owner operator should be able to request from the carrier that you're leasing onto, have the agent send me the COI with me on it. And there should be no problem. I have yet to come up with any reason or rhyme or reason as to why that would not be allowed or not be correct or
Yeah.
anything like that. I provide COIs to anybody associated with the policy at the owner's approval, right? But if the owner's not approving it, that's a concern. Why is the owner not allowing me to send a COI to a leased on owner operator proving that they're on the policy? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there should be no reason that you can't request that and can't have that COI directly from the agent.
I don't even know how people do that and sleep at night. Like how do you how do you have somebody leased on and they're not on your policy? They're just riding rogue out there. I don't know how anybody can sleep at night. I don't know
They
how
sh-
anybody could be in a truck and not know they're on the policy and sleep good.
the owner of the carrier, I mean, unfortunately, I think they sleep just fine at night because the liability isn't really much on them. Their name is on the BOL, but that's it. they didn't pick up the load. Their driver didn't pick up the load. Their truck, as far as all the documentation and paperwork goes, they're not on the policy. They're not associated with them. They can tear up that lease agreement in an instant, never to be heard from again. Nobody knows, where this line of the cargo came from, and that person just picked it up. And you can argue until you're blue in the face, but if you don't have the documents to line it up, and if you don't have the proof that you were actually on that policy, what'll happen is you as the owner operator will be liable first, and then you're going to have to go back and sue the carrier and be like, hey, you provided me fraudulent documentation, you claimed I was on the policy, I wasn't, whatever the case is. But then that's an uphill battle that you have to fight, when, to your point, like, you should not be having those headaches. You should be sleeping fine at night knowing that you're actually insured and actually covered. And it's a big concern. I mean, we all manage Facebook groups, large Facebook groups, where we see the people posting in there, and they're desperate, and they're like, I need a load today, I need a lease on, I need an NC number, and they are desperate to get on the road. And that disparity comes from, or allows for other people to take advantage of you. And if you get on there and you claim, I need it now, I've been screwed over, you're going to get screwed over again. All the people messaging you and commenting, they're going to take advantage as much as they can to get you on the road, make them money, and not have any liability outside of it. If you, let's say you lease on for 15%, 20%, on a normal circumstance, that means that carrier is getting about 15 to 20% profit minus whatever, tech fees and everything that they have to pay to do that, and the dispatching and whatnot, factoring, etc. But that 15 to 20% goes a long way when they never put you on the insurance policy, because then it's 15 to 20% plus whatever you're paying for insurance. Now they're just pocketing off the top $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, with no proof that you're even on it.
Because you probably think you're paying an insurance and you're not really even on there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so let me ask you this. Go ahead, Derek.
Oh, well, I have like a two-part question. You kind of touched on it earlier, but I talked to a lot of young, new carriers. Could you explain more of why a new carrier needs to not try to get their own insurance through Progressive or somebody, and need to go through a broker like yourself? And then second question, what is one part of a policy that you suggest a carrier always get, that they try to, I'm sure you have ones tell you like, oh, I don't need that, you don't need to add that to the policy. What's that one or two things that you think all should make sure that they have, anytime they start a new policy?
Yeah, I'll start with the second question because I remember that one more clearly, and I'll go back to the first question in a second. So the second question about what specific coverage anybody should need that they don't necessarily think about. Your auto liability and cargo is standard, right? Like, that's what everybody expects. That's what everybody knows is needed. $1 million auto liability, 100K cargo. In my opinion, physical damage is a necessity depending on the value of your vehicles, right? If you have anything worth over 15,000, then physical damage is needed. But I think most people catch on to that, and they realize, especially if you have a loan or a lease on that vehicle, you're going to be required to have it anyways. So I'll just go ahead and put that as obvious, an obvious one that should be on there as well. In those cases, if you have a loan or a lease, rental, or if you owe more than $15,000, get that. But the main one that I feel like people forget about, or they purposely don't get because they feel like it's not needed, is that general liability. And there's two reasons to get it, or I guess three really. One, it's inexpensive. It's probably the cheapest coverage you can find out there. Depending on your circumstances, where you're at and what insurance company you're with, it could be as low as like $30 a month, or it could be as high as $90 a month. And the protection that it provides, it essentially, without getting too much into the weeds and without specifying too much, it's almost providing liability on anything related to your company outside of driving the vehicle. So as long as you're not driving the vehicle, then all the rest of the liability is covered by the general liability to an extent. So cleanup a lot of the times from an accident can be listed under that general liability. If somebody's loading or unloading your trailer and that truck is parked and they get damaged, they get injured, that could be general liability. If there's a number of circumstances, somebody slips off your trailer, gets hurt based on your vehicle without it moving. Like, there's a lot of things that go on there. Advertising, if you're doing social media advertising and you cause somebody harm or injury, etc., through that, especially if you're doing social media advertising, that's where the general liability kicks in and starts to cover those instances. It's got medical expenses as well, typically included. If you've got a warehouse, or if you are renting property or renting a parking spot, etc., from somebody else, and you somehow cause damage in that area or to the belongings in that area outside of, again, driving that vehicle, it has those coverages. But really, outside of the additional coverage it provides, there are brokers out there, tons of brokers that are starting
They
to
want it.
require general liability. Yes. Amazon was probably one of the first ones
Yep.
years ago that started requiring general liability, but there are a lot more now, especially if you're going through RMIS, occasionally with highway.
Yep.
Sometimes my carrier packet or portal, the Descartes, whatever the name is.
Mhm.
Sometimes, more and more of those safety software systems that brokers are using are requiring that general liability. And if you get that up front and you've got a load in front of you and you've got a load that you want to get, you don't have to worry about, do I have the coverage? Do I have to contact my agent? Yada, yada, yada. It just, there's no reason for it really, in my opinion, if it's going to be 30 to 90 bucks a month and it covers all of that, and it helps make sure that you don't have to worry about any future loads. That would be the biggest one for me. But since we've talked about lease on agreements, I'll specify another coverage as well. When you're leasing on, the number one, absolute number one coverage that people forget about. We've talked about being on the owner operators or on the carrier's liability, their auto liability and their cargo. And we've talked about how you shouldn't be on your own insurance. Technically, there is a policy that you do need as a leased on owner operator in order to be driving legally anytime you're not under dispatch. And that's going to be either bobtail or non-trucking liability. You'll probably heard the terms occasionally. Bobtail gets kind of used interchangeably sometimes when it shouldn't. Non-trucking liability is the broader form coverage of bobtail. And I'll specify what non-trucking liability is. And this is another one. It's very inexpensive. It could be 20 bucks a month. It could be 50 bucks a month. Like, there's no real reason not to get it if you're leasing on. And what it covers is it allows for you to be covered, your liability up to $1 million or whatever value you set it at, when you are driving that truck that's leased onto a carrier, but you are not on dispatch. So if you're driving home, if you're driving to the shop or to the store, or you're doing anything not in relation to directly going and picking up a load, dropping off a load under dispatch, or something related to that carrier that you're leased onto specifically, you have to have non-trucking liability. And the reason for that is, if the carrier owns its own equipment and its own trucks, those trucks are covered 24/7 because it's under the carrier, it's on their policy. That's just how the policy works. If you are a owner operator and you lease onto that carrier, your lease agreement is only in terms of when you're actively working for them, when you are actually doing the job. And so as soon as you stop doing the job, but you're still technically under contract with them, you have no coverage. You're driving illegally. Some
Mhm.
people get by on this. Some people don't have an issue because when they do get in a wreck or they do have a claim, they act like they were on dispatch, or they act like they were going back to the yard or whatever. There's ways to get around it. I would not recommend it, but it happens. But non-trucking liability, with it being, again, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks a month, there's no reason not to have it, to provide that coverage. Because if you are found guilty, if you're in a claim and they found you guilty of not having that insurance and not being under dispatch, you again are liable for all of that. And then you'll have to go through the court system. You'll have to get SR22, which is additional proof of insurance, which is more expensive even on your personal insurance policy. It'll affect you there, make you have SR22 to prove that you do have insurance, or you do drive with insurance when you're on the road. But what was the first question you asked, Derek? I told you I was going to forget it.
No, it's okay. Basically, you, like I said, you kind of touched on this, but just a more of an explanation of a quick explanation of why a new carrier needs to go through a broker to get their insurance and not try to just go call Progressive or Geico something on their own.
There's two main reasons, in my opinion. One is, like I said earlier, when you are calling around, if you call to actual insurance companies, there are only a set number of insurance companies that'll deal with you directly as an actual trucking company. And it's like the 3 or 4, maybe 5, depending on the situation. But you can call Berkshire Hathaway, you can call Geico, Byberg, which technically is owned by Berkshire Hathaway, which so is Geico. You can call Progressive. And then I think 3 has been doing some trucking, which is also another Berkshire Hathaway company. So essentially, you call Berkshire Hathaway or one of their companies, or Progressive. And those are like the main ones that'll work with you directly. Now, Berkshire Hathaway has a ton of requirements, a ton of different appetites, schedules there that a lot of people don't fit the bill for, and you might even think that you do, and underwriting might tell you it's a good policy, and you hit go on that policy and it binds, and you pay $5,000 down, and 3 days later it cancels because of XYZ and the underwriting terms. They didn't notice it up front. That's one thing that your agent can prevent. Your agent, like as me, I know what Berkshire Hathaway requires. I know what Byberg does. I know what Geico does. And we do everything we can to underwrite that ourselves up front before you pay us a dime, so that you're not out of money and then have a policy cancel. Similarly to that with Progressive, Geico, Berkshire Hathaway, all of them, they are one company, and they only know that one company, and they only know their own information and what they provide. And so if you get a quote from Progressive and Progressive says, hey, it's $32,000, and you say, whoa, I was expecting it to be like 15,000, and you're a brand new trucker, and Progressive says, hey, really, we're the only option out there for you. This is the best quote. I've quoted 10 people today. They're all around the same rate. We've been selling them. Like, this is just what you have to deal with based on your state and your age and being a new venture. And then they talk you into it. They really sell you on it. And then you buy that $32,000 policy. Whereas, in my opinion, as well as an agent, like, I want you to have a policy. I want to sell your policy, but I'm not going to oversell you with Progressive at 32,000 or whatever company at, whatever price it is. If I can get you a lower rate with another company, or, even with one of those, but I get you the lowest rate possible to keep you as long as possible. Like, that's my goal. My goal is to keep you on the books from day one till the day you die, essentially, till you're, done in trucking fully. The agents that you call at Progressive and Geico, they don't give a damn. They'll sell you whatever comes across their desk because they're going to move on to the next person. Most of them don't even work off of commission. So, I mean, one way or another, like, if the rate goes up or down, they don't give a damn. They're just going to sell, again, whatever comes across their desk. And as long as they sell it, it doesn't matter if you cancel 3 weeks later. They still made the same money that they would have made if they didn't sell the policy. You know what I mean? So it's not just the access to additional companies, because we've got 40, 50, 60 plus companies out there outside of the 4 that you can get on your own, but it's also the knowledge base and understanding, especially from years of experience now, of what is suitable. I try to tell people all the time, you can't really make it in trucking, at least long, if you're paying more than $2,500 a month. Like, if you're at $2,500 a month, there should be a reason. There should be something going on, some crazy accidents in your record, some speeding tickets, DUI, something should be there. We've only ever, in our 3 years, sold one policy that was more than $2,500, and I think it was $3,200, and it was under very specific circumstances. And they only had that policy for, I think it was like 5 or 6 months, and then they switched off to something better because we had to wait for things to fall off of their record. But these companies, you go through them, and they'll sell you the world at whatever price they want. And you'll think that that's legit and that's the best that you got. And you see it in the comments all the time. People say, oh, Progressive's the only one that'll work with you.
Yeah.
No, they're not.
With new authorities.
Yeah, they're not the only one that'll work with you. And it's that mindset and that sales pitch, I think, that is the issue that I have with going direct with certain companies like that, or even going with an agent that doesn't have experience. Because when I say go to an agent, like, I mean go to a trucking agent that knows what the hell they're doing, been around for years, and has access to a plethora of companies. You can go on Facebook right now, and I am in trucking insurance groups, and some of the people in there hate me because I talk shit all the time about other agents, where you should not consider yourself a trucking insurance agent if you go into one of these groups, one of these insurance groups, and you say, hey, I've got a risk, XYZ, dry freight, yada, yada, yada. Who else can I take them to other than Progressive? Why is that your question? Well, why are you asking other than Progressive? You should be saying other than Progressive, Geico, Berkshire Hathaway, Coverwell, Canal, Great West. Like, go through the list of all these different companies and say, these are the ones I've tried. What else is out there? Then, yeah, you're a trucking insurance agent. You're trying to find some extra options. But if you say other than Progressive or other than Progressive and Geico, I have no faith that you know what the hell you're doing in trucking. And we had one. I have a screenshot. I haven't posted it yet, and I'm kind of hesitant to do it. Because I get shit from all of them.
You can blur their name out.
That is true. They posted the other day, though, and they said there's actually a couple different ones. One said, I'm trying to explain to my client, I went ahead and filed their insurance, and it's showing a $750,000 instead of $1 million, and I just don't understand why, when I tell Geico to file the filings, why it's $750,000. It's like, if you don't know why that is, you shouldn't be a trucking insurance agent. Like, there are specifics, and I'll explain that to y'all right now as well. The reason is, again, everybody knows, I think, that the FMCSA puts forth the requirements for your MC number. $300,000 if it's less than 10,000 pounds, $750,000 if it's more than 10,000 pounds, and then $1 million or $2 million if you're doing hazmat and doing other things. And it's all based off of what you select. And the insurance companies are only required to provide proof of that amount. So if you're required 750,000 and you have $1 million, the insurance company is only going to provide the 750,000 proof to the FMCSA. And the reason is because they are only on the hook in terms of a cancellation for that 750,000, because there's a 35-day warning period and a 30-day cancellation period for your filings, where the FMCSA requires that, let's say you don't pay your bill, Derek, and the insurance company gives you a 35-day warning that they're going to cancel your policy, and then 5 days later they say, hey, in 30 days your policy's canceling. For that 30-day window where you've stopped paying them, there's no more added value to the insurance company to cover you, they still have to cover you for those 30 days, but they only have to do it up to the amount that they filed with the FMCSA. So if they filed 750,000, they're reducing their exposure by $250,000 for a carrier, for a company that is not paying their bill and is then seen as a high risk anyway. So there's more potential for an accident. But if you're an agent and you don't know those things, like, again, you should not be doing trucking insurance. I had another one come to me and said that they tried to log into the FMCSA to file the BMC 91X for the carrier. We don't file that. I'm an agent. We don't do that. That's the insurance company. There's nowhere to log in. That's not a thing. And the agent is claiming that they're a trucking insurance agent, but they can't figure out how to log into the FMCSA to file. And it's like, you're not a trucking insurance agent. You're an insurance agent that is an idiot in trucking. Like, I don't know how else to explain that. So that you got to find a good agent. I'll say that.
So as we get ready to get close to closing out, one question I do have, which is renting a box truck and insurance coverage. What are your thoughts on that? And is it a higher risk? Is it more expensive? Because we started out with a rental truck and it started at $2,500 a month. And then we switched to a different truck. That's probably why our policy was going crazy, because we
There's
switched
pros and
like
cons.
3 trucks.
There's definitely pros and cons. I'll try and wrap them up as quick as possible. So on one side, renting as opposed to owning, I think most people in here have dealt with renting before, and the price just on the rental itself can skyrocket based on the mileage, how far you drive it. So you have to calculate all of that in. Aside from the insurance, you have to calculate what the actual cost of renting is, and is it worth renting compared to buying. But on the insurance side of things, there's a lot of complications that come to it. So one is going to be the rental term. Are you doing a 1 month? Are you doing a 3 month, 6 month, a year? What that term dictates is going to depend on the insurance company that you can go with. A lot of insurance companies don't like short-term rentals. They don't like 30-day rentals. They don't like weeklies. They want something that is typically longer than 30 days. Some of them want more than 6 months. But assuming that you've got a rental that is, let's say, just more than 6 months, or some agreement with Enterprise or Penske or Ryder, etc., the biggest complication and the biggest expense right now with those companies is there are certain sectors of those companies. It's not 100% across the board, but it depends on where you're getting it, that require insurance coverages that don't make a whole lot of sense. And what I mean by that is you could get, let's say, a 2018 truck with Penske, and that truck is worth $60,000, right? But Penske, it might at a week later or a month later switch you into a 2018, 2019, 2020, all the way up to a 2026, right? You never know when you're going to get a new truck or when you have to switch them out. So they try and get you to have coverage for the value of a 2026 vehicle, even if you're in a 2028. So you could pay up to $120,000 of physical damage coverage, which could be, $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 on your policy, as opposed to the vehicle's actual value of $60,000 or $80,000. Because Penske and Ryder and Enterprise, they're trying to cover themselves on the off chance that you switch that vehicle out and then you don't tell your insurance company that you switched it out. They want to have the value maxed out at whatever that vehicle could be. In addition to that, they also ask for what's called any auto, hired auto, non-owned auto, a lot of the times, coverages. They don't really understand how those work. Most insurance companies nowadays, if they provide those coverages, they only provide them on auto liability. They don't provide them on physical damage. And these rental companies, hopefully they don't see this because it's going to shoot a lot of carriers in the foot. But they don't understand that when we add any auto or we add hired auto on the auto liability section of the COI, that provides no coverage for the physical damage. They want the any auto and hired auto so that when you switch those trucks out, like I mentioned, and you forget to tell your insurance company that you switched the truck out, it's a new VIN, the rental company wants it to still be covered. But technically, if it's only on the any auto liability section, the liability is the only thing being covered if you hit somebody else. The physical damage is on the second page of the COI, and there is no option for any auto, for hired auto. So they're trying to protect themselves, but in doing so, they're costing the carriers thousands of dollars in insurance. I've tried to talk to some of my carriers. I'm not doing it, specifically when the rental company is requiring $120,000 in physical damage for a vehicle that we know is only worth $40,000 or $60,000. Some of them still do it. You'll get lucky occasionally. A lot of the times, these contracts can be worked with if you talk to the actual, what is it called? There's a specific name of these companies, but basically they're trucking consultant manager, like somebody not behind the desk, right? Somebody that's higher up, and you get approval from them in order to not have to have that coverage, that additional physical damage coverage. Because again, that's what will really eat into your profits. And Telly, when you were renting, I don't think that was a requirement at all. I don't think you had to deal with that hardly at all, if at all.
Well, I know when I took it off and I kept asking my agent, why is this so expensive? What you just named out, he said was on my policy.
Oh,
And
then
I
that would
was
be the
like,
any auto, hired auto. Yeah, he left that
I
on.
said, take it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I wasn't in the rental truck no more. So I said, take it off.
And
So once they
that
took
that
it off, it
reminds
went
me,
down.
Derek, real quick before we wrap up, that's another very specific thing. If you call Progressive, if Progressive's your insurance agent or if Geico's your agent, and you call them and you say, hey, I want to remove this truck or I want to add this truck, they will do exactly what you say. They won't provide advice. They won't say that's a good idea, a bad idea. They won't tell you what the next steps are going to be, what issues it's going to cause. Hey, since you removed that rental truck, should you also remove these coverages? Do you still need those? They won't do any of that. They will do exactly what you ask. And then months down the road, you will end up with a policy that is crazy compared to what you should have. And I had one, it was about 3 months ago. They ended up, couldn't get a hold of me on a Saturday. They called the insurance company. I tried to tell them not to do that, wait for me to respond basically. But they needed this trailer interchange. They absolutely needed it that day, which hopefully if y'all are working your companies correctly, you should have that knowledge and understanding that you need it before the final day. But anyways, they called in and they got the trailer interchange added. And then they called me a month later. I had no idea that they added it because these companies don't tell us. Like we have to actively go into your policy and see what's changed if we don't do it ourselves. So a month later, they called in and they said, "Why is my bill so high? I owe $8,000." And I said, "Oh shit! Like I have no idea. Let me go look at it." I went and looked at it. They added 11 trailers on on
Oh,
trailer interchange. They have one truck. Instead of
okay.
adding one trailer, they added 11 trailer interchange trailers. So that $1,100 that they were supposed to pay for the one trailer, they ended up multiplying it by 11. And then I had to go back to the insurance company and fight to have them remove it and reduce it down to one. And they got onto me and they said, "Well, why'd you add 11?" And I was like, I wasn't even involved in this process.
I
So
call my
again,
I call my broker for everything. I ain't messing with that stuff, man. That's what he get paid for.
exactly. And that
Exactly.
is what we get paid for. You're right.
Yeah.
All right, Jeremy, as we get ready to wrap up, if somebody wants to get commercial insurance, regular car insurance, like um, do you do all 50 states or you just do Texas or all 50 states?
We do 46 states right now. If you're in one of the states that we don't actively do ourselves, we have partners, trusted partners that we will get you to get you taken care of. So you can fill out an application on our website. You can shoot me a DM. You can reach out to me. Our phone number's all over our website and on my Facebook as well.
Okay,
But yeah, no
because
matter
my
what
aunt
state
is
you're in,
asking. My aunt asked about it. She's in Georgia. How does she
we do
contact you,
Georgia.
Jeremy?
It's a good question. The McClureAgency.com is our website, THEMCCLURE agency.com.
Oh,
Facebook, I'm under Jeremy William McClure. On TikTok is probably my biggest asset right now,
Redbeard.
or my biggest following. Redbeard Trucking, yeah, at Redbeard Trucking. Go follow me on there.
Okay, and my last question, because I'm doing free webinars on Straight Connect. Will you be open to doing a webinar on insurance?
Yeah,
I
definitely.
can help you do the PowerPoint and all that if you need it.
Let's do it.
All right, so I'll put you down for September. Derek, you didn't respond to my email. I ain't gonna call you out like that, but I did.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll go check on it.
all right, thank you guys so much. Like I said, Jeremy, you'll pop up all over. If you want to listen, you can check out YouTube and it'll be there. Amazon, not Amazon, Spotify, Apple, they'll all be there too. And please, everybody, sign up on Straight Connect. It is free. We will have the provider's profile coming real soon, Jeremy, so you'll be able to join. And yeah, we almost done with phase one, and phase two will start up in maybe another couple of weeks. So thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thank
Thank
y'all.
All
you.
right,
Thank
have a good
you.
one.
You too.